If you're overwhelmed tonight, I want you to hear something before you do anything else. You don't have to carry it. Not tonight. Not by yourself. I know what it feels like when everything piles up at once. The bills, the job, the family, the decisions nobody else seems to notice you're making alone, day after day, without anyone asking how you're really holding up. You lay down exhausted, and instead of rest, your mind hands you the whole list again. Every unfinished thing, every worry you didn't have time to feel during the day, waiting patiently for the lights to go out so it can finally get your full attention. There's a reason it feels heavier at night. The house goes quiet, the noise of the day fades, and there's nothing left standing between you and the weight you've been holding since morning. But Scripture speaks straight into rooms like this one. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. Not carry it with you the way you've been trying to. Sustain you while he carries it instead. Tonight, we're not going to fix everything. That was never the plan. We're just going to set it down together, slowly, one breath at a time, in front of the one who already knows exactly how heavy it's been. You can lay it down now. I want to tell you about a night I haven't talked about before. It was years ago, and I was lying in bed with a mind that would not stop moving. Not one big thing. That's what nobody tells you about being overwhelmed. It's rarely one big thing. It's 40 small things, stacked on top of each other until the stack has a weight all its own. A conversation I handled wrong. A bill I hadn't opened yet. A phone call I owed someone. A version of myself I was supposed to be by now and wasn't. I remember staring at the ceiling and thinking, if I could just get one thing handled, maybe the rest would quiet down. So I got up. I made a list. I thought organizing the chaos would shrink it. It didn't. The list just gave the chaos a shape I could see clearly, which somehow made it heavier, not lighter. There's an old farmer named Earl I've mentioned before, out in eastern Tennessee, who used to say something I didn't understand for years. He said, "Son, a man can only plow the field he's standing in." I thought it was just something farmers said. Simple wisdom for simple work. But I've come to believe he meant something much larger than farming. Earl ran cattle and corn both, and some seasons the work piled up faster than any one man could keep pace with. Fences needing mending. A barn roof that leaked every time it rained. Calves due any night, and half his equipment older than he was. I asked him once how he didn't lose his mind trying to keep up with all of it at the same time. He looked at me like the question itself was the mistake. "I don't keep up with all of it at the same time," he said. "Never have. I keep up with what's in front of me. The rest waits its turn, same as it always has." That sounds simple, sitting here saying it out loud. It didn't feel simple that night. I couldn't sleep, staring at my own version of Earl's whole farm laid out in my head at once, every fence, every leak, every calf, all demanding attention in the same breath. I think that's what overwhelm really is, when you get down to the bottom of it. Not too much work, too much of the future crammed into one single moment that was never built to hold it. Scripture knew this before any of us did. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. That's Matthew chapter 6, and it sounds almost harsh the first time you hear it. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. But sit with it a little longer and it turns gentle. It's not telling you to stop caring about tomorrow. It's telling you that tomorrow was never yours to carry tonight. God gave you today's portion, not the whole harvest at once. I think about Walter sometimes too, a man I came to know later, who spent 40 years on a ranch in Nebraska before moving back to be closer to family in Tennessee. Walter told me once that the hardest lesson ranching ever taught him wasn't about cattle or weather. It was about limits. You cannot outwork a 2,000-acre spread by yourself, he said. I tried for the first 10 years. Near broke me trying. He said the day he stopped trying to hold the whole ranch in his hands at once and started asking what the day actually needed from him was the day the work finally became bearable again. That is not the same as giving up. I want to be careful here, because there is a difference between laying a burden down and walking away from it. Walter did not stop ranching. He stopped carrying the entire operation in his chest every waking hour like it was all balanced on him alone. He started trusting the fences that were already mended, the gates that were already latched, the work that was already, quietly, done. Maybe that is the peace most of us miss on nights like this one. We lie there cataloguing everything that is unfinished, and we forget to notice what already isn't. The debt that got paid last month, the conversation that already healed itself, the problem that felt enormous in June and barely crosses your mind now. Somewhere in all that noise, quieter than the worry, is a truth we rarely stop to hear. Some of what you're carrying tonight, he already fixed. You just haven't caught up to it yet. I don't say that to dismiss what's heavy right now. Some of it is real, and some of it is still unfinished, and pretending otherwise would not be honest. But not everything on that list in your head belongs on tonight's shoulders. Some of it belongs to tomorrow. Some of it was never yours to solve alone in the first place. And some of it, quietly, without you noticing, is already behind you. There's a picture I keep coming back to, from Earl's place, of the lantern he kept lit by the barn door during calving season. It never lit the whole farm. It wasn't meant to. It lit exactly enough ground for the next step, and no more than that. Not because the rest of the dark didn't matter, because a man walking with a lantern like that learns to trust what he cannot yet see. He stops needing the whole field illuminated before he's willing to take a step forward. I think God works with us the same way some nights. He doesn't hand us the whole picture. He hands us enough light for tonight's portion, and he asks us to trust that the rest of the field is still standing, even in the dark we cannot see past. Take therefore no thought for the morrow. Scripture says, right after that verse about sufficient unto the day, take no thought for the morrow shall take thought for the things of itself. That's not permission to be careless. It's permission to rest. There's a difference, and it took me a long time to understand which one Scripture was actually offering. So if you're lying there tonight with the whole list running through your head at once, I want you to try something with me. Not fixing anything, not solving anything, just noticing, for a moment, what field you're actually standing in right now. Not tomorrow's field, not next month's harvest, just this one, this bed, this breath, this quiet room. That's the only field you're required to plow tonight. Everything else can wait its turn, same as it always has. Let's pray together now. Not with a list of everything you're carrying. You've done enough of that already tonight. Just let your hands go still, and let your shoulders drop, and let your breathing slow, and let's say these words to him together, at whatever pace your heart needs to say them. Lord, I come to you tonight with more than I know how to carry. You already know what it is. I don't have to explain it to you, or organize it into words that make sense, or even understand it fully myself before I bring it to you. You already see the whole weight of it, every piece. Even the parts I haven't found the words for yet, even the parts I've been afraid to look at too closely myself. I confess that I've been trying to hold it all at once. The work undone, the people counting on me, the decisions I keep circling back to, afraid of getting them wrong, the version of myself I think I'm supposed to be by now, and the quiet fear that I'm falling short of it. I've been carrying tomorrow's weight tonight, and yesterday's weight along with it, until there was hardly any room left for just being here, in this one moment, breathing this one breath, in this one bed, under this one roof. Your word tells me to cast my burden upon you, and that you will sustain me. Not that you would take the burden and leave me standing there empty-handed and confused about what to do next, but that you would sustain me, hold me steady, while you carry what I was never meant to carry alone in the first place. I want to believe that tonight. Lord, help the part of me that still doesn't fully believe it to rest anyway, even before the believing catches all the way up. I think of your son in the garden, the night before everything was asked of him. He did not pretend the weight wasn't real. He said his soul was sorrowful, even unto death. He asked if it were possible to let the cup pass from him. He was honest about being overwhelmed, Lord, and I want to be honest with you too, instead of pretending I have it together when I don't. I am overwhelmed tonight. I am tired in places rest doesn't always reach. I don't need you to tell me it isn't heavy. I need you to help me set it down anyway, even while it's still heavy, even before it makes sense to. Teach me what it means to plow only the field I'm standing in tonight, not next week's field, not next month's harvest, not the whole farm laid out at once in my mind. Every fence and every leak and every unfinished thing demanding attention in the same breath. Just this room, this bed, this breath, this small portion of time you've actually given me to live inside of right now. Everything else, Lord, the fences I haven't mended, the calls I haven't returned, the questions I can't yet answer, the future I can't yet see, I ask you to hold those for me until morning. Not because they don't matter, because you already know I cannot hold them and rest at the same time, and rest is what you are calling me toward right now, in this exact moment. Thank you for the things already handled that I forgot to notice, the prayers already answered that I stopped watching for, the burdens you already lifted while I kept reaching down out of old habit to pick them back up. Help me see what's already been fixed, Lord, instead of only cataloguing what's still undone. Help me remember that not everything in my chest tonight is still waiting on me. Some of it, quietly, you already carried away. I lay this night down in front of you now, not solved, not finished, just set down, the way a tired man sets down a sack he's been carrying since morning, grateful for somewhere to finally put it, even for just a few hours. You are the God who sustains, not the God who watches a man collapse under a weight he asked him to carry alone. So I'm trusting you with this, all of it, even the parts I couldn't say out loud tonight, even the parts I'm still ashamed of, even the parts I don't understand myself. I'm trusting that your grace is sufficient, that your strength is made perfect in weakness, and that I don't have to be strong enough for tomorrow tonight. I only have to be still enough to let you hold what I've been white-knuckling for far too long. In the quiet of this room, Lord, meet me, not with answers to everything at once, just with enough light for the next step, the way you've always given exactly enough, and never once asked me to see further than that. And Lord, I think tonight not only of myself, but of the others carrying weight like this one too. The wife lying awake beside her husband, doing the same silent arithmetic he is. The father in another house, staring at his own ceiling, doing the math on a debt he hasn't told anyone the full size of. The son somewhere who feels like he's failing at something he never asked to be responsible for. I don't know their names, Lord, but you do. Carry them tonight the way I'm asking you to carry me. Let them find, even without knowing where it came from, a small measure of the same rest I'm asking for right now. I thank you that you are not a distant God, watching from far off while I struggle to hold up what was never mine to hold alone. You came close, you wore skin. You know what it is to be tired, to be pressed on every side, to want, for one moment, for someone else to carry what you'd been carrying. And still you did not turn away from the weight. You went through it, and you came out the other side, and now you sit at the right hand of the Father, able to feel exactly what I'm feeling tonight, because you felt it too. So I don't come to you tonight as someone begging a stranger for mercy. I come as a son coming home, worn out from a day that asked too much, trusting that the door is open and the light is already on. Thank you for never once locking that door, no matter how many nights I've come to it heavy like this. Help me sleep tonight, Lord, not because everything is resolved, but because I trust the one who holds what isn't. Let the last thought in my mind before sleep be your peace, and not tomorrow's problems. Let me wake tomorrow able to plow only the field in front of me, one step, 1 hour, one small mercy at a time, trusting that you are already working on the rest. Even while I rest, I release it now, all of it, every piece I named and every piece I couldn't find words for, into your hands, where it was always meant to rest in the first place. Thank you for being strong enough to hold what I never could. Amen. Close your eyes now, if you haven't already, and let me take you somewhere quiet for a while. Not away from what you're carrying, just away from the noise around it. Picture a farmhouse porch, the kind with wide wooden boards worn smooth by decades of boots and bare feet. It's late, past 10, and the last of the day's heat is finally letting go of the air. A single porch light burns above the door, warm and yellow, casting just enough glow to see the first few steps of the yard before the dark takes over. Moths circle it lazily, the way they always do, unbothered by anything beyond that small ring of light. Earl is sitting in his usual chair, the one with the seat worn thin in the middle from years of use. A cup of coffee going cold in his hands because he stopped noticing the temperature an hour ago. He isn't doing anything, isn't fixing anything, isn't making a list of tomorrow's work. He's just sitting, watching the dark settle over the cornfield the way it does every night. Patient, unhurried, the same as it's done 10,000 nights before this one. Beyond the porch, the cornfield stretches out toward a tree line you can barely make out now, the stalks tall and heavy this late in the season, swaying just slightly in a breeze too soft to hear, only to feel. Somewhere out past the fence line, a barn sits dark against a darker sky, its outline familiar even without light to show it clearly. Earl knows every board of that barn by feel alone. He built half of it himself, 40 years ago, when his back could still take the work without complaint. There's a pond off to the side of the property, still enough tonight to hold a reflection of what little moonlight makes it through the clouds. No wind disturbs it. No animal moves near its edge. It simply sits there, patient the way the whole farm is patient, holding what light it's given without asking for more. I want you to notice something about this place, if you're picturing it with me. Nothing here is rushing toward tomorrow. The corn isn't trying to grow faster than it's growing. The pond isn't reaching for more moonlight than the clouds allow. The barn isn't worried about the roof that needs mending come spring. Every piece of this farm is simply being what it is, tonight, in this exact moment, trusting that tomorrow will bring what tomorrow brings. Earl told me once that some of his best thinking happened on nights like this, sitting on that porch, not thinking about anything in particular at all. "The problems don't go away," he said, "but they get smaller out here. Or maybe I get bigger. Hard to say which. I've thought about that a long time since." I think what he meant was that sitting still long enough, in a place quiet enough, lets you see your burdens the way God sees them. Not erased, just sized correctly against something larger than your own worry. There's a barn owl that lives in the loft of Earl's barn, and some nights you can hear it call out across the field, low and steady, more like breathing than like sound. It isn't afraid of the dark. It was made for the dark. It moves through it with a kind of confidence that has nothing to do with being able to see everything clearly, and everything to do with trusting the wings it was given. I think that's part of what this hour is for. Not seeing your whole path clearly, just trusting the wings you've been given for tonight's flight, however short that flight may be. The porch light stays lit a little longer, even after Earl finally rises from his chair and heads inside. It burns through the whole night, actually set on a timer he installed years ago, so that no matter what hour a man might need to find his way back to that door, the light is already there, waiting, having never once gone out. I think God's peace works something like that porch light. It doesn't wait for you to ask correctly, or to have the right words ready, or to have finished cataloguing everything wrong before it's willing to shine. It's just there, steady, burning through whatever hour you happen to need it, whether you noticed it was lit or not. Picture yourself walking up that porch now, if it helps. Feel the boards under your feet, worn smooth by everyone who walked there before you. Feel the warmth of that porch light settle over you the way it settles over the yard. Imperfect, but enough. Enough to see the next step. Enough to know you're not walking in complete darkness after all. You don't have to solve the cornfield tonight. You don't have to mend the barn roof, or count every stalk, or worry whether the pond will hold enough water come August. Tonight, you only have to sit on the porch a while. Let the corn keep growing the way it knows how to grow. Let the pond keep reflecting whatever light it's given. Let the barn stand exactly where it stood for 40 years, without you having to check on it once more before you can finally rest. The light stays on. It always does. You can lay it down now and trust that it'll still be burning come morning, same as it always has. There's another image I want to leave you with before we move on. Somewhere past midnight, when Earl's porch light has been burning alone for hours, a soft rain sometimes comes through that part of Tennessee, the kind that doesn't announce itself with thunder, just arrives quietly on the tin roof of the barn, tapping out a rhythm too steady to be anything but peaceful. It's not a storm. It never demands anything from anyone. It simply falls, the way it's always fallen, watering a field that will be ready for it, whether or not anyone was awake to notice. I think about that rain sometimes when I can't sleep, the sound of it on tin, patient and unhurried, asking nothing of the man lying beneath it except that he let it fall. It doesn't wait for the crops to be perfect, or the fences mended, or the whole farm in order. It simply comes, night after night, doing its quiet work whether anyone is watching or not. Maybe that's closer to grace than we usually picture it. Not always a sudden thunderclap that changes everything in an instant. More often, something steadier. Something that falls on a tired field, night after night, doing quiet work underneath the surface, long before anyone sees the harvest it was building toward all along. You don't have to rush either. Let the corn keep growing. Let the pond hold its light. Let the barn stand where it stood for 40 years. Let the sound of that rain on tin be the last thing your mind holds on to. steady, unhurried, falling exactly where needed, exactly when needed, without a single field ever having to ask twice. There is a psalm written for exactly this feeling, not a general psalm about trouble, a specific one written by a man who used the very word you might be carrying tonight. Let's read it together, slowly, and let it settle where it needs to settle. Hear my cry, O God, attend unto my prayer. That's how it begins, not with polished language, not with a man who has his thoughts in order, just a cry and a request to be heard. If your prayer tonight feels less like eloquent words and more like a cry you can't fully explain, you are in good company. David started here too. From the end of the earth will I cry unto thee, when my heart is overwhelmed. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I read. That again. When my heart is overwhelmed, not if, when. David is not describing a hypothetical man in some distant trouble. He is describing himself in that moment, at what he calls the end of the earth, as far from help, as far from steady ground as a man can feel. And in that exact place, overwhelmed, he does not ask God to remove the feeling, he asks to be led. Lead me to the rock that is higher than I. That phrase has stayed with me for years. Higher than I, David isn't asking for a rock at his own height, something he could have found and climbed himself if he'd had the strength left. He's asking to be led to something above his own reach entirely, something he could not get to on his own, no matter how hard he tried. I think that is exactly where overwhelm leaves most of us. Not needing a little more effort, needing something higher than effort could ever take us. For thou hast been a shelter for me, and a strong tower from the enemy. Notice the tense here. Hast been, not might be, someday, if things go well. David is remembering. He is standing in the middle of being overwhelmed and reaching back into memory for every other time this same God proved to be shelter, proved to be a strong tower. That's worth doing tonight too. Not pretending the weight isn't real, just remembering, honestly, the other nights, this same God held you when you didn't think you'd make it through. I will abide in thy tabernacle forever. I will trust in the covert of thy wings. Selah, Selah. That small word appears throughout the Psalms, and no one is entirely certain what it means, but most agree it was some kind of pause, a rest, a place in the music or the reading where the singer was meant to stop, breathe, and let what was just said actually land before moving forward. I want you to take that pause right now. Let the covert of thy wings settle over you the way it's meant to, not rushed toward the next verse, just resting for a moment under what was just spoken. The covert of thy wings, that's the shadow beneath a bird's wing, the small hidden space a young bird runs to when danger is near, not because it understands the danger, but because it trusts the wing without needing to. I think that's the posture David is describing here, not a man who has figured everything out, a man who has simply run to the shadow he trusts and stayed there. For thou, O God, hast heard my vows, thou hast given me the heritage of those that fear thy name. There's a quiet confidence returning here, after the cry, after the overwhelmed heart, after the plea to be led somewhere higher. David is remembering that he belongs to something larger than tonight's trouble, a heritage, a people, a promise that existed before this particular weight showed up and will still exist long after it's past. Thou wilt prolong the king's life and his years as many generations. He shall abide before God forever. O prepare mercy and truth, which may preserve him. These verses look forward, past tonight, past this season, into something lasting. I think there's comfort hidden in that too. Whatever is overwhelming you right now, however large it feels in this exact hour, it exists inside a much longer story. A story that does not end with tonight's trouble having the final word. So will I sing praise unto thy name forever, that I may daily perform my vows. The psalm ends not where it began. It began with a cry from the end of the earth, a heart overwhelmed, a man needing to be led somewhere higher than he could climb on his own. It ends with praise, not because the trouble vanished by the final verse, but because somewhere between the cry and the ending, David let himself be led to that higher rock and found it steady enough to stand on. I think that's the shape most of our nights like this one actually take, if we let them. We rarely go from overwhelmed to at peace in a single breath. There's a middle part, a cry, honestly spoken, a remembering of what God has already proven himself to be, a pause, that sealer, where we let the truth catch up to the feeling instead of rushing past it, and only then, slowly, praise. Not manufactured praise, forced out because we think we're supposed to feel better by now. Real praise, the kind that comes after being genuinely led somewhere higher than we could have climbed alone. I don't know exactly where you are in that shape tonight. Maybe you're still at the cry, still at the end of the earth, heart overwhelmed, not yet feeling led anywhere at all. That's all right. David started there too, and the Psalms still made room for him. You don't have to arrive at praise tonight to be welcome in this prayer. You only have to be honest about the cry and willing, even a little, to be led toward something higher than what's overwhelming you right now. Maybe you're further along than that. Maybe, somewhere in these verses, you already felt something loosen in your chest. Some small remembering of a night God carried you through before this one. If so, let that memory do its quiet work. Let it be the rock beneath tonight's trouble, steady enough to stand on, even while the trouble itself hasn't fully passed yet. I believe that rock is still standing tonight, still higher than whatever is overwhelming you, still steady enough to hold a tired man who has nothing left to offer but an honest cry and a willingness to be led there. And I believe, whether you feel it yet or not, that you are already being led there now, in this exact hour, simply by being still enough to listen. Let's be still now. No more words to work through, no more weight to name. Just breathe, in and out. Let your shoulders drop a little further into the mattress. You don't have to think of anything right now. You don't have to solve anything, or remember anything, or hold anything at all. Just this breath. The porch light is still burning. The rain is still falling on the tin roof, soft and steady. Nothing out there is asking anything of you tonight. In and out. You are held right now. Not because you earned it. Not because you finally got everything sorted out. Simply because his hand is already under you, the way it's been under you every night before this one, whether you noticed it or not. Let the silence hold what words can't. In and out. There is nothing left to carry in this exact moment. Just this breath. Just this quiet. Just this rest. Stay here a while longer. If your mind tries to pull you back toward tomorrow's list, gently let it go. It will still be there in the morning. It doesn't need you tonight. In and out. Feel the weight of the blanket. Feel the mattress holding you up the way it has every night, without you having to ask it to. You are not required to have this figured out before you're allowed to rest. Rest first. The rest can come after. In and out. Somewhere out past the window, The field is quiet too. Nothing out there is rushing toward morning. It's simply resting the way you are resting now. Let that be enough for tonight. Just this breath, just this stillness, just this small, steady trust that you are held. Stay here as long as you need to. If sleep doesn't come right away, that's all right too. Lying still in his presence is its own kind of rest, even before your eyes finally close, in and out. Somewhere tonight, a lantern is still burning low, just enough to see the next step by. You don't need to see further than that. Just the next breath, just this one. He already knows what tomorrow holds. You don't have to know it tonight. In and out. Let your body sink a little heavier into the bed. Let your mind grow a little quieter than it was a few minutes ago. This is enough. This stillness, this breath, this trust. Rest now. There's a man named Harold I want to tell you about. Someone I came to know later in life, long after Earl and Walter had already taught me most of what I thought I knew about carrying weight. Harold was different. He didn't run a farm or a ranch. He spent 30-some years running a small hardware store in a town too small for most people to have heard of. The kind of place where everybody owed him a little, and he never once brought it up. Harold told me once about the year everything came apart at the same time. His wife got sick. The store's roof needed replacing right when the bank tightened up on loans. His son was struggling with something Harold never fully explained, only that it kept him up more nights than he'd admit to anyone but me. He said it felt like standing under a roof with 100 leaks, and no matter which one he plugged, 3 more opened somewhere else. I about broke that year, he told me, not from any one thing, from all of it landing at once, with nowhere left in me to put it. I asked him what got him through it. He didn't answer right away. He just looked out toward the street for a while, the way men do when they're deciding how honest to be. I stopped trying to fix it all myself, he finally said. That's the short answer. The long answer is it took me most of that year to get there. He told me there was a night, deep into that season, when he sat alone in the back of the store after closing. Surrounded by inventory he couldn't afford to restock, a ledger he was afraid to open, and a phone he kept avoiding because he didn't know how to tell anyone how bad it had gotten. He said he finally just said it out loud, to nobody in particular, or maybe to God, though he wasn't sure at the time which one he meant it for. I can't do this anymore. I don't have anything left. He said nothing dramatic happened. No voice from heaven. Just a strange kind of quiet that settled in after he said it, like something in him had finally stopped fighting for control of things it was never able to control in the first place. I think that was the moment I actually started praying instead of just asking, he told me. Before that, I'd been asking God to bless my plan, my effort, my own strength, holding it together. That night, I stopped asking him to help me carry it. I just handed it to him, all of it, at once, because I didn't have the strength left to hand it over one piece at a time. He laughed when I asked if things got better right away, the kind of laugh that has some grief still folded into it. No, not right away. The roof still leaked for another month. My wife's treatment took the better part of a year. He paused, but something in me was different. I wasn't carrying it alone anymore. It was still heavy work, but it wasn't the same weight, because I wasn't the only one holding it. That stayed with me longer than almost anything else he ever told me. The circumstances didn't change overnight. The roof didn't fix itself. The struggle with his son didn't resolve in a single conversation. What changed was who was holding it, And Harold said that made all the difference in whether he could keep standing under it or not. He told me something else too, something I think about on nights like tonight. He said the hardest part wasn't handing it over. The hardest part was not taking it back the next morning out of old habit. The way a man reaches for a tool he's used his whole life, even after he's told himself he doesn't need it anymore. Every morning for a long while, he said, I'd wake up and my hands would already be reaching for the weight again, before my mind even caught up. I had to keep setting it back down, sometimes a dozen times a day. It wasn't one decision. It was 100 small ones every single day, choosing again to trust that he actually had it. I think that's the part most of us aren't warned about. Laying the burden down isn't usually a single dramatic moment that fixes everything after. It's often a returning, a choosing again, tomorrow, and the day after that, to trust the same God who held it yesterday will hold it today, too. Harold called it practicing trust the way a man practices anything worth getting good at, badly at first, and then, slowly, with more steadiness than he thought he had in him. He's an old man now, the store long since sold to someone else. His son grown and their relationship healed in ways Harold says he never could have engineered on his own. When I asked him what he'd tell a man going through what he went through, he thought about it for a long moment. Tell him it's all right to hand it over more than once, he said. Tell him God's not tired of catching the same weight, even if the man feels foolish for dropping it again. Tell him some nights, all he's got the strength for is handing it over one more time, and that's enough. That's always been enough. I've thought about Harold's words often since, especially on nights when I catch my own hands reaching back for something already handed over once before. There's no shame in that reaching. It doesn't mean the prayer failed. It just means you're a man, still learning, the same as Harold was. Maybe trust works the same way. Maybe tonight isn't the night everything gets resolved once and for all. Maybe tonight is simply one more time picking up the same tool Harold picked up in the back of that store. The willingness to say, out loud or silent, I can't do this anymore. I don't have anything left, and to mean it as an offering instead of a defeat. Harold never once described that night as his lowest moment, even though by every measure it should have been. He described it as the night he finally started praying instead of just asking. Asking keeps you in charge, still holding the plan, hoping God signs off. Praying, the way Harold meant it, hands over the plan itself, trusting that whatever comes back might not look anything like what you asked for, and choosing to trust it anyway. That's harder than it sounds sitting here, but he did it imperfectly, 100 times over, and on the other side of it, he found a peace steady enough to carry him through the rest. Not because the circumstances got easier all at once, because he stopped trying to carry them entirely alone. If tonight is your first time picking up that same practice, that's all right. If it's your 100th time, having to hand the same weight over again after reaching for it out of habit this morning, that's all right too. Harold would tell you the reaching back isn't the failure. Only never handing it over again would be. We started tonight with a simple truth. If you're overwhelmed, you don't have to carry it. Not tonight, and honestly, not most nights, though it took me years to actually believe that, instead of just saying it. We sat with Earl on his porch, watching a cornfield that wasn't rushing toward tomorrow, a barn owl trusting wings it never had to understand to use. We sat with Walter, who learned the hard way that no man can outwork a 2,000-acre spread alone, and that the day he stopped trying was the day the work finally became bearable. We sat with David too, a king overwhelmed at the end of the earth, crying out to be led to a rock higher than himself. And we sat with Harold in the back of a small hardware store, learning that laying a burden down isn't usually one dramatic moment. It's a returning 100 small choices made again and again to trust the same God who held you yesterday. If there's one thing I want you to carry out of tonight, and only one thing, let it be this: some of what's been weighing on you, he already fixed. Not all of it. I won't pretend to you that every burden resolves itself while you sleep, but more of it than you realize has already quietly passed, already been handled in ways you haven't caught up to yet, already been carried somewhere you can't see from where you're lying right now. He already fixed it. Say that to yourself if you need to, the next time your hands start reaching for a weight you already handed over. He already fixed it, not because the circumstances vanished overnight, but because the moment you laid it in his hands, it stopped being yours to hold alone, whether you felt the difference right away or not. I think about Earl's lantern, low and steady by the barn door, never lighting the whole farm, only ever lighting the next step. I think that's exactly the kind of light being offered to you tonight, not the sun breaking through every shadow at once, just enough to see the next breath by, and an invitation to trust that the rest of the field, the parts you cannot see from here, are still standing, still being tended, still held by hands far steadier than yours. You do not have to solve tomorrow tonight. You do not have to plough the whole field before you're allowed to rest. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof, Scripture says, and I believe that means sufficient unto the day is the grace thereof. Tonight's portion of grace is enough for tonight's portion of weight. Tomorrow will bring its own, and its own grace to meet it, the same as it always has. If you found your way to this video overwhelmed, carrying more than one man should carry alone, I hope something in tonight helped you set even a small piece of it down. Not forever, maybe, just for tonight. That's enough. That was always enough. Some nights, all we manage is the reaching for the tool of trust again, clumsy and uncertain, the same way Harold described it. That's not a small thing. That's the whole practice. That's most of what faith actually looks like, most nights, for most of us. I think, too, about that sealer in the psalm we read together, that quiet pause built right into the middle of David's cry. I wonder sometimes if that's what God is asking of us on nights like this one. Not a bigger effort, not a stronger faith, whatever that would even mean at 3 a.m. with your chest still tight. Just a pause, a willingness to stop reaching for the next solution long enough to let what's already true catch up with you. He is a shelter. He has been a strong tower. He is not asking you to fix everything before you're allowed to rest in that. There's something I didn't mention earlier about Walter, the rancher out of Nebraska. He told me once that the hardest years on that ranch weren't the ones with the worst weather or the sickest cattle. They were the years he tried hardest to prove he didn't need help. Pride, he called it plainly, though he didn't use that word kindly toward himself. He said the turning point wasn't when the work got lighter. It was when he finally admitted, out loud, to another rancher down the road that he couldn't keep up alone. Not as failure, as fact. And something shifted after that admission that no amount of extra effort had ever managed to shift on its own. Maybe that's part of what tonight has been about too. Not just laying the burden down in prayer, though that matters more than most of us realize, but admitting honestly to yourself and to God both that you were never built to carry all of this alone in the first place. That admission isn't weakness. Earl never once called it weakness. Walter never once called it weakness. David certainly didn't. crying out from the end of the earth with nothing left to prove. Before you sleep, I want to leave you with this. There will be other nights like this one. Other weights that pile up faster than you can plow through them. Other lists that seem to grow longer the moment you try to shrink them. And on those nights, I hope you remember there's a rock higher than you. A shelter that's been proven before. A shepherd who does not grow tired of catching the same burden twice, or 100 times, for as long as it takes you to finally believe he means it. You can lay it down now. He already fixed it. May God bless your night with peace, rest, and the quiet assurance that he is carrying what you cannot. You are not alone in this, tonight, or any night after it. Good night, and God bless.